Hello Reddit readers, today we have secret stories on the timeline. I will not detain you anymore. Like and subscribe to the channel. Enjoy watching. Story 1 from user Geowheel. This one is a pet peeve of mine, as it is affecting me. Gulf War illness with a minor in military personnel's exposure to toxic substances. GWI, it's changed names a few times now. It isn't even called GWI anymore. I have no idea what it's called. Now what is it? Military personnel who served during the original Gulf War all the way to currently have been experiencing a myriad of issues: neurological issues, sleep disorders, gastrointestinal disorders, autoimmune disorders, memory dysfunction, and a few other issues. Have there been studies on it? Not a huge amount. There have been a couple, but not many. One that was given very little funding. This one frustrated me, as this is likely what is perpetuating my original damage vector. Jet fuel and research in this arena could help many of us, if not a cure to damage already done, at least from more damage happening. Part of PACT is to deal with this. It infuriated me to see those we love, our troops asshats, high-fiving each other, hazardous chemical exposure. This plays in part with GWI emo. Many blame burn pit and such. I was never anywhere even remotely near that stuff. Any of the commonly blamed things either were exposed to so many chemicals, many times very unnecessarily, or all in the name of the mission. You signed up for that. We sign up with a certain knowledge that, well, have some possible exposure to things. If there's an attack, I may be exposed to radiation or chemical agents, etc. If I need to get that jet out in an emergency, I may get some jet fuel on. You were not expecting chronic exposure day in and day out, as any seaman about JP5. Those in charge push us faster, which results in a wink. Wink, don't forget about your PPE, we'll be back in 10 mins. It takes 2 to get the stuff on, and 2 to get it on the job itself. Takes 9. That is, if you cut some corners, man. I am covered in jet fuel and hydraulic fluid. We all are its normal look. My skin doesn't even react anymore when we were washing jets. Still, the stuff they gave us couldn't get dried. Hydraulic fluid off, especially on a jet back from Saudi. Imagine trying to clean off a fruit roll-up that has melted and solidified over and over again, with occasional new layers of roll-up. Added the very first wash, I did. They had us all line up. The super had someone act as lookout, and he popped a wing fuel sump. We all added a bit of jet fuel to our buckets. It was the only way to get that hydro off. It was an everyday thing. They eventually gave us new wash stuff. Still wouldn't get all that stuff off. Well, what are the hazards in this stuff? Isn't there in MSDs? Yep, a single MSDs is kept in the main building. Definitely not the wash hanger, as we weren't supposed to be popping a sump. The thing is, there isn't that great of scientific study or the harms of jet fuel either. So an MSDs is kind of useless. I had one guy say, "It's bad for your liver." Yep. The couple tests I can find, which all seem to refer back to older ones, say it's actually a neurotoxin. JP8 is the worst. The AF uses it almost exclusively. We fail our fighting forces when they get out. We need to fix that. However, we've already failed them. As soon as they sign up more with less, is killing us faster ops tempo, then we can actually handle an atmosphere of general disregard for safety and almost a bragging atmosphere about it. Equipment so old, it wasn't even around when some of the current forces' parents were born. I worked on KC-135RT, built from 1958 to 1964, and the AF wants to keep it in service another 40 years. There are a myriad of other issues that go ignored or half addressed until someone else comes in and focuses on something else, or whatever caused them to focus. Their refocuses somewhere else. Story 2 from user Vunlug. Sasha Lord, the Night Tsar of Manchester and guy who runs the warehouse project Parklife and other huge corporate clubbing operations in the UK. Search his name on here and Twitter and you'll see what the people of Manchester think about him. He's inextricably linked to Andy Burnham, who will very likely be the next UK Prime Minister. And that's when all this horribleness will explode onto the front pages in brief. He's responsible for completely destroying Manchester's independent clubbing scene in the mid-00s, and from then on, he's literally in it to ensure his business is ring-fenced, and he can carry on making huge profits. He doesn't like clubbing or music. All this is well reported. He brags about treating young new DJs like dirt on his shoe, for example. See his widely published comments about booking a young Calvin Harris. He refused to pay his travel costs and made him play his venue before the doors had opened to the public. Sasha laughs about this, acting like it's a big joke, rather than the acts of someone unspeakably callous and driven by greed and cruelty. It won't be just Calvin he's shafted, it'll be 1,000 up-and-coming DJs who he's over and laughed about afterwards. Oh, and during COVID, he lied about what his business actually does to claim $500,000 from the government that he's not entitled to. Yet somehow the Manchester Labour Mayor Andy Burnham has given this Torag a position in public office that carries with it real power and influence. Apparently his brother is involved in local gov too, so I'm sure that's a factor, but not sure how. Yet everyone on the club scene in Manchester despises this guy. Yet he carries on acting like he's Teflon. It's the usual political trick of ignoring the flames and riding it out. And when you have as much money as he does, it often sadly works. It's sickening for anyone who loves clubbing to see this absolute rotter get away with it with official government support. No less, it'll all come out soon. But by then, Hell have made his millions and emigrated to the south of France. And he recently published his autobiography and somehow claimed that it's a Times bestseller. I'd love to know what ludicrous smoke and mirrors peer scam he pulled to get that, as literally no one on the MCR music scene or Manchester in general would want to read it. Elevator pitch: check out this book by a boring businessman who's never suffered any real hardship. Maybe a few snide LinkedIn Tories, that's it, he's utter scum. I can't stress this enough. BW, the fact that he even has a PR team should send alarm bells ringing. When has a guy who runs a business or has a role in local government ever need PR help, unless they've been involved in some exceptionally unsavory shit over the years and need to get in front of it? Maybe then his wiki page is very meticulously sanitized, but it'd be nice if someone took on the task of making it true and fair, rather than a puff piece by his PR team. If anyone wants to take him down, please get in touch. He's ruined so much about this city's once great nightlife peas, like I said above. This will almost certainly come out in the wash in a few years, when Andy Burnham makes his bid for Prime Minister. The stinking Sasha Lord debacle will be an anchor round his neck. Jobs for the boys, very corrupt boys. That's when the national press will latch onto all this and turn it into a national scandal. It could have been prevented years ago, but money talks and ultra-privileged, privately educated guys walk. Story 3 from user PMMiraxwound. I wouldn't say it is an open secret yet. But the corruption in Wall Street and how they have actively dissolved companies while profiting the whole way. I'm no expert in it, but the gist of it is that hedge funds will actively bet on a company going down shorting, and when they go bankrupt, they don't have to pay any taxes on those profits. That can be a reasonable action to take if you see a company you think is not worth there, or you think they may be mismanaged. But what they seem to do is target specific companies and instill cronies into the C-suite who actively mismanage the company. So it is destined to fail the execs who were put in don't care because they get bonuses, golden parachutes, and the opportunity to move into another company. To do it all again, some other companies are even in bed with Wall Street. Jeff Bezos was a hedge fund manager before Amazon fame, and it is suspected that through previous connections, they've been able to muscle out the competition. Toys R Us bankrupt had previously had a 10-wire partnership with Amazon which went sour, but the then 70-wire-old company has now gone bankrupt. Blockbuster bankrupt was plagued by poor leadership that failed to make smart moves. The CEO, John Antioco, is now a chairman for the board of directors for Bricks Holdings. LC Blockbuster's stock still exists and has had unusual movements related to price spikes. And there are some theories about it relating to hidden, illegal market mechanics being used. Sears bankrupt was Amazon with its catalog before Amazon was even a thing. The then CEO was even accused of stripping away its assets. Prior to Sears' demise, he was also a hedge fund manager. Lots of other factors and people involved, including BCG, Mitt Romney, Jim Cramer, Elon Musk, seem to have ties to predatory practices, and they have done it under the flag of dying brick and mortar, which sounds plausible, so is easily accepted. This also leads to dying malls. But hey, I found it on Amazon, which leads to cheap real estate. See Blackhawk buying property? Add in how business networks pump and dump stock picks and push narratives on retail stock traders while using insider info and illicit means. C inverse Kramer ETF. Right now, we are seeing the pushback to this via meme stocks. Notably GameStop. They have overshorted the company, betting the company would go bankrupt. But they have a C-suite who turned it around $4 billion cash on hand, zero debt, which destroyed the bear thesis. They also have a very large fan base, and those who were betting against GameStop may be painted into a corner. This is very much a cliff notes about things. But I think in the next months, we are going to see some very interesting things surrounding the company, and some secrets might come to light. Story 4 from user Findigo. New Zealand's case is a bit different to the US, and you don't see many ads on TV here. A comment I saved that explains why we have it in New Zealand too, but for a very good reason. In the late 1980s, our government set up a department called Pharmac. Think of it as a bulk buying club with 5 million members each year. Pharmac puts out tenders for the drugs that cover whatever 99 of New Zealanders would need in their lifetime. Things like paracetamol, insulin, cancer drug, and antihistamine, etc. They say, hey, all you drug companies, New Zealand wants to buy 10 million hay fever tablets of these specifications for this upcoming summer. Who wants to give us the best price? While Canadians and Americans pay $140 for a medication. We pay $5 as a drug company. You either win the Pharmac contract, or you completely miss out on any sales within New Zealand of your product. So they drop their prices real low when a doctor writes a prescription on his computer and looks up antihistamine. Anything Pharmac funded appears highlighted in the list. Drug companies were somewhat unhappy about this. Initially, there were more cases challenging it going through the courts than Pharmac had staff on its payroll. So the government decided to let the drug companies advertise on TV. But in reality, when you go to your doctor and say, the TV told me to ask about Cialis because my dick doesn't work, the doctor is going to say, well sure, here is a prescription. It will cost you probably $50 at the pharmacy. Or I can prescribe you generic drug which has the same ingredient, but only costs you $5 at the pharmacy, since it won the Pharmac tender. And it's no surprise major brand drug companies will repackage their drugs into white label brands and then bid on the supply tenders with the exact same product. International brand, Lopressor is white labeled by its manufacturer, and my doctor prescribes Betaloc Kiar, which won the Pharmac tender for a type of beta blocker tablet, so that the Lopressor brand retains the more expensive image and price point on the pharmacy retail shelf. A buyer in the USA can't say, you're selling Lopressor to New Zealanders for $3. Why should we pay $90 because it's a different product? None of the drug companies really bother advertising on TV, knowing that the doctors are just going to prescribe a cheaper option. Story 5 from user Sissy Freelove. The treatment of the elderly in nursing facilities, especially dementia care units, is entirely the fault of society. Allowing for-profit healthcare aides and nurses are the bottom of the totem pole as far as direct care and get crap for pay with equally shitty hours, and both physically and emotionally demanding work facilities won't supply proper equipment. They won't pay employees enough, nor actually hire enough FFs a facility. I spent $325 per day per patient for food, and it is one of the biggest companies in the country that includes breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, and drinks. Let's talk about patient care. The same facility had a 35 HPPD minimum, 45 scheduled. HPPD is hours per patient day. That is the total amount of hours the nursing staff cares for a person. That is the total hours of all nursing care a patient was scheduled for. That's for all adults' activities of daily living, nursing treatments, assessments, medication, administration, etc. From nursing staff, hypothetical patient Ted needs minimal care, does most things by himself, self-ambulates to meals and toileting, etc. He's budgeted for 45 hours of care a day. Hypothetical patient Jane needs total care and can't do anything without extensive help. Nursing got 45 hours of budget for all toileting throughout the day, getting out of bed and dressed, washing help, feeding call lights, everything that broke down to 2 licensed nurses and 45 nursing aides per shift per unit. When I was an aide there, I'd have anywhere from 13-16 patients every morning and was expected to have them all up, washed, dressed, and at breakfast within about an hour of my shift starting. I could go on and on about how horrible nursing facilities are. but not enough people care to affect any meaningful changes. So I left the industry. I still have a picture book with various patients and families I had cared for both in facilities and privately, but it just isn't worth it. I cared too much to stay in the field overall and left the math. Don't math. I don't blame aides and nurses not giving a and having to rush through everything and do a shitty job. It's society's fault for allowing everything we have in the industry overall. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and write comments. See you later.